All right. I want to tie this back into what we were talking about. So we have the agricultural revolution. And like Mr. Plyman was telling you and teaching you, that because of the agricultural revolution, people are able to live in bigger groups. People are able to successfully farm, right? So now let's think about this. If you are a hunter-gatherer group, if you're a band of about 25 or 30 people, you don't really need big written down laws and rules, right? A group of 25 people who all live together and work together, if you have disagreements, you can talk it out. If you have issues, you don't need like big laws. Now, if you have a group of 1,000 people or 5,000 people or 50,000 people or 500,000 people, are you going to be successful if you don't have some sort of rules and things like that in place? No, you're not, right? And so this is where the idea of civilization comes into play. Now, the thing that we're going to be looking at is something called the 8 traits of civilization. Okay, the 8 traits of civilization. With these 8 traits of civilization, these are things that every civilized group or every civilization has. Sometimes people mess up the difference and they get kind of confused with civilized and civilization. So, when we talk about being civilized, it has to do with like being polite, sticking up for other people, like stuff like that. Civilizations are a little bit different, right? So, civilizations, that's going to be a complex society that has cities and well-organized government, okay? So being a civilization is not the same thing as being civilized. Do those two things make sense? Okay, so now, when we talk about civilization, the 8 things that every civilization has are what we're going to be looking at and learning. And I will let you know, I am 100% expecting you to know the 8 things that are on page 35. Those are the things that we're going to use to compare and contrast different civilizations. Now, it doesn't matter if it's ancient Persia, which Mr. Plyman is going to be talking about. It doesn't matter if it's Samaria. It doesn't matter if it's the United States in 2022. Okay? It doesn't matter if we're talking about the Ferengi in, Star Wars or Star Trek.
Rules of acquisition.
Huh?
So I was going to make a rules of acquisition.
Yes, the rules of acquisition. You definitely should make your expectations look like the rule of acquisition. That would be hilarious. All right. For those of you that are like Mr. Seymour, I have no idea what you and Mr. That must be an old person thing because what are you even talking about? Huh? You seen Star Trek? You know about the Ferengi and the rules of acquisition?
I don't.
You don't? Yes, a lot of people don't. It's okay. But here's the point, right? Here's the point. Any civilization will have these 8 things. You said you know Star Wars a little bit more, right? The Order of the Jedi, that was a religious group. That's going to be one of the things that every civilization has, is some sort of religion. So I am 100% expecting you to know what these 8 traits are. This is the sort of thing that could be on a comprehension quiz, not just a check-in quiz, okay? Because you absolutely positively need to know these things. So what I'm going to do is I am going to read what each one of those 8 things are, and you are going to read back to me the definition that goes with it. So for example, the first thing that every civilization has is going to be cities. So if I were to say cities, what is the thing that you would read back to me as a class? Population center. So let's try that. So for cities, Mr. Seymour, 6 hours, what does the word cities mean? Please read it back on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
Population centers.
Population centers. Now, I want us to notice something. If you look at the chart, the first one is cities. Please look, well, let's back up a step. What color are section subheadings? Green. Good. So let's look at the last section subheading on page 24. What is the last section subheading on page 24? If you see it, go ahead and say it. No, we weren't listening very well. I didn't say page 25. I said page 24. Or did I say page 25?
Wait, what?
35.
Sorry, page 34. What's the last subheading on page 34?
Cities.
Cities. So now notice, in our chart, their summary definition of cities is 2 words, population centers. But our reading gives us a lot more information than that. Corday, I'm going to have you have a seat right over here. That is going to be your new spot. So the book is actually going to give us more information than the chart will, but the chart gives us some idea. Okay? So, every civilization is going to have a government. And according to our chart, what does government mean? Please read it back on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3.
A well-organized system of rule.
Good. So every civilization is going to have an organized system of rule. They're going to have an organized way to say what their rules are, what their expectations are. They're going to have an organized way of making sure that people follow the expectations for that civilization. Okay? The next one is established religion. And on 3, what does established religion mean?
A shared set of beliefs.
A shared set of
I guess if I say on the count of 3, I should probably then count to 3. Huh?
That's smart.
That usually helps. All right, 1, 2, 3.
A shared set of beliefs.
A shared set of beliefs. Yes, listen to your friend. She's trying to help you out.
Level 1.
So, a shared system of beliefs. One of the things that's really cool about the United States is according to our system of government, we have an amendment that says the government cannot establish a religion. So in the United States, you are free to believe whatever you would like, right? And the government cannot say, nope, everybody needs to be Hindu, or everybody needs to be atheist, or everybody needs to be Christian, or everybody needs to be Muslim, right? You have the choice here in the United States to have that shared set of beliefs. But do we have religion in the United States? Yes, right? And notice with this shared set of beliefs, I think this is kind of interesting. I didn't point this out to other classes, but I think we can handle it, right? Did it say anything about like a spiritual belief here? No, it's just a shared set of beliefs. Now, later on in the year, we will get a different definition of religion that does talk a little bit more about having some sort of spiritual side to it. But when we're talking about civilizations, it's a shared set of beliefs, okay? Job specialization. Can you please read that on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Workers doing specific jobs. Not everyone needs to farm.
Not everyone needs to farm, right? Mr. Plyman spent a lot of time talking about this. That I'd have specialization, like with the shoes and stuff like that. So, I want to point something out with that. Without job specialization, none of the rest of the stuff on this wheel is possible, right? Because you won't really be able to do anything but have small groups and try to find food. So our next thing that every civilization has, you'll find this in the United States, you'll find it in Japan, you'll find it in Canada, you'll find it in the Middle Ages times, you'll find it in Greece, you'll find it in social classes. And what are social classes on 3? 1, 2, 3.
People of different ranks.
People of different ranks. In the United States, our social classes are based kind of on economics. In some places, it's based on when you were born, right? In some social classes, elders are respected more than others. In some social classes, it's based on like if your family was royalty or something like that. So it doesn't really matter how a society chooses to group. The important thing is that they do group. The next one, public works. What does that mean on 3? 1, 2, 3.
Protections that help the whole society.
Okay, so with this one, I'm going to spend a couple of moments on this because people sometimes get this confused. So when we talk about public works, people tend to focus on the part where it says things that help the whole society. But a big part of public works is that it has to be public, right? So if somebody takes like their own personal money and they choose to build like, I think a good example is the Kauffman Center for the Performing Arts, right? So you know that building downtown, the one that's kind of funny shaped, and so that building, right? It was built with like private funds, and I'm not sure, there might have been some public funds, but it was built with a lot of private funds. So that's not necessarily a public work, even though it's something that helps everyone, right? Public works are things that help everyone, but were paid for by the city or by the government or by the ruler. Okay, so some examples in Kansas City would be like libraries, right? Anybody can use libraries. They are funded with public money, right? That's different than a bookstore, right? While a bookstore can help people, bookstores are not funded by public money. Another example would be our paved roads, our streets, right? That's something that the city pays for, is paid for through taxes and stuff like that. But it's something that benefits everyone, not just certain people. So with other classes, we had a chance to kind of go through, and some people shared what they thought were some public works. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll have time to do that today because I want to make sure we get through these last two and still have time to put things away. So arts and architecture, what does that mean on three? 1, 2, 3.
Buildings and objects of beauty.
And again, if we look in our book, and this is going to be on the next page, where it talks about arts and architecture, it's like 2 paragraphs. So this is just a little summary to kind of give you an idea, but we will be learning more about it tomorrow. And finally, writing. And writing is one that people get confused on. So what does writing mean on 3? 1, 2, 3.
A system of records, information, laws, prayers, and history.
Thank you. So when we're talking about writing for civilization, it doesn't mean that people wrote letters to their grandma, or it doesn't mean like Dear Diary sort of stuff. When we're talking about writing for a civilization, it's like record keeping writing. It's things that help to understand the history or what people do. So now, a school such as Berry, we have writing here, right? We have writing like you do with Mr. Ruiz's class, but we also have writing for civilization. We have record keeping writing. What I'd like for you to do now, please. Oh, there we go. So you can go ahead, make sure that your books, you just put away your cards, give them to me on your way out.
What? How do you write the whole book?